What's going on, everybody? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Nokia G400 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Now before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Nokia G400 5G, we're getting a 6.58-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 401, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. With the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 405, and a 20:9 aspect ratio as well. So in a lot of ways, these displays are pretty much the same, despite the Nokia G400 5G at 6.58 inches versus 6.5 being a tiny bit larger. It's really not that noticeable, and in addition to this, they have the same aspect ratio at 20:9, giving both phones a nice tall and narrow form factor. They both have 1080p resolutions, so the images are nice and sharp, and with 120Hz refresh rates, the movement on the screens with these two phones is going to be a little bit faster and smoother than your standard 60Hz displays. So if you're doing something like watching videos, playing games, stuff with a lot of motion on the screens, with both phones, you will get a real nice experience, and in general, they're just going to feel a little bit more premium to use. That being said though, despite the displays being almost the same in almost every way, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does have one significant advantage, and that is with the Super AMOLED display versus an IPS LCD display. The image quality is going to be significantly better. With the Super AMOLED, the colors are going to look a lot nicer, the display in general is a little bit brighter, and the viewing angles are quite a bit better, as you can see here. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is going to be so much easier to see. So if you live in a brighter area, then this is definitely something to keep in mind. But that being said, in general, if you're looking for more of a mid-range phone that has a great display, you really won't go wrong with either phone. But that being said, between the two, I would say the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does have noticeably better image quality. Now for storage, with the Nokia G400 5G, we're getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting 128GB with microSD card expansion as well. So clearly here between the two, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G with double the storage does have a significant advantage, and that's only the US version. If you really want more storage, the A53 5G also has an unlocked version that has 256GB. But either way, if you want more storage between the two, obviously the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G will be the way to go. That being said though, with the Nokia G400 5G, 64GB honestly really isn't too bad. And for the average user, as long as you're mindful of what you're putting on your phone and you make sure to use a microSD card whenever you can, the storage you get with this phone will be at least acceptable. Now for security features, both phones do have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners too. With the Nokia G400, it's right here on the power key, and with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, it's right here in the display. But starting with the Nokia G400 5G, let's go ahead and give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, the fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive. And again, both phones do have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Nokia G400 5G, we got a water drop notch for the front facing camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, this phone has a max recording quality of 1080p at 60 frames per second in both the rear and front cameras, so unfortunately no 4K here. With the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we got a nice looking hole punch design for the front facing camera. This camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. And for video, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G has a max recording quality of 4K in both the rear and front cameras. So if you're recording a lot of videos, definitely keep this in mind. That being said though, when it comes to features, both phones are pretty good, but keep in mind again, with the Nokia G400 5G, there is no macro camera here, whereas the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does have a macro camera, so if you do like to get those close-up detailed images, then definitely keep this in mind. In addition to this, when it comes to just the quality in general, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does take significantly better photos. So honestly, if you are going to be taking lots of photos and you want to get the best quality between the two, then the A53 5G will be a significantly better choice here. That being said, if you're just taking a couple pictures every now and then, maybe to share on social media for example, and you want nice pictures, but you don't need the absolute best quality, then keep in mind, while the photo quality with the Nokia G400 5G isn't really as good, it still is good for what it is, and for more casual use, it definitely will get the job done. Now as far as RAM and processor go, with the Nokia G400 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Samsung Exynos 1280. So between the two, when it comes to performance, it's not like an insane difference. It's not like the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is anywhere near as fast as a flagship phone, but that being said, between the two, the A53 5G is indeed quite a bit faster. So if you're going to be on your phone a little bit more, maybe you're doing stuff like mobile gaming, for example, that needs a little bit more power, in that kind of situation, I do recommend the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G because the performance again is quite a bit better. But that being said, for more basic activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music, and just more moderate use overall, the Nokia G400 5G, while again not being quite as fast, will still at least get the job done. But again, if you want the faster phone between the two, keep in mind, the A53 5G is faster. Now that being said, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both phones, and here are the scores I got. So again, as you can see here, it's not really an insane difference, but it is a noticeable difference all the same. But what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and comparing your results to these. And that's going to give you a better idea of whether or not one or maybe both of these phones will be an upgrade for you. Because depending on what you're coming from, you might find that while again, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is the faster phone between the two, the Nokia G400 5G might be a good enough upgrade already. Now when it comes to the battery, these phones honestly are essentially the same, both having 5000 mAh batteries, with the Nokia G400 5G supporting 20W fast charging, and the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G supporting 25W fast charging. And honestly, the difference in fast charging is really not going to be very noticeable, and in my experience, both phones do have really good charging speeds. That being said though, keep in mind, in order to actually take full advantage of the fast charging, you will need a good fast charger, and in case you don't have one, I will be linking to my favorite fast charger, as well as some other smartphone accessories in the video description, so if you need one, definitely check that out. But in general, with 5000 mAh batteries, you can expect to get great battery life and longevity from both of these phones. So honestly, if you're looking for a phone with a really good battery, you're really not going to go wrong with either. As far as software goes, both phones do have Android 12, and I imagine at least the Samsung is going to be getting Android 13 pretty soon. I'm not 100% sure what Nokia's software support's like, but I imagine Nokia's been around for quite a while, and this is a pretty decent phone. So I imagine this phone should be getting Android 13 at least eventually, but if not, just keep in mind, the Nokia G400 5G does at least have Android 12. But if you really want the best software support, then honestly I would go with the Samsung, because in general, Samsung is really known for their software support. So with the A53 5G, aside from Android 13, this phone is also going to get several other major updates as well. So if you really want to have the latest version of Android, definitely keep this in mind. In addition to this, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments using tap and pay, keep in mind either phone can do this just fine. Now another thing I do want to point out here is that with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, unfortunately this phone does not have a headphone jack, so if you have a regular pair of 3.5mm headphones you want to use, unfortunately with this phone, you will need an adapter to use them. On the other hand, the Nokia G400 5G does have a normal headphone jack, so on one hand, in my opinion, when you're deciding between two phones, especially in a comparison like this, where the differences are a little bit more significant, I personally wouldn't think about that feature that much. But if you really do want a headphone jack and not having one is a deal breaker, then keep in mind, the Nokia G400 5G does have one, but again, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G doesn't. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, in pretty much every way where there's a difference, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is a significantly better device. Although both phones do have really good displays, the A53 5G does have better image quality, it also has a lot more storage, a better camera that can record 4K videos, and a much faster processor. That being said though, on the other hand, with the Nokia G400 5G, first of all, this phone in general is a bit more affordable, and when it comes to those certain areas, like the display, the storage, the camera, and the processor, while again, the A53 5G is significantly better in those areas, for what it is, honestly, the Nokia G400 really isn't bad, and if you're just looking for an affordable 5G phone for basic activities like web browsing, social media, maybe watching videos, and you like to take the occasional photo every now and then, but you don't really need a crazy high quality camera, in that kind of situation, well again, if we ignore the price, I would definitely say go for the A53 5G if you can get the Nokia G400 5G for significantly less, and you don't really need the extra features the A53 5G has, the Nokia G400 5G might be a better choice. But this concludes my comparison between the Nokia G400 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next video.